What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Another video means another dopamine high, because I had to buy something to feel something, and today we're back at it with another review. For today's review, we are taking a look at Hasbro's Star Wars The Black Series Gaming Great Jedi Fallen Order 3-pack. This includes Inquisitor Cal, the Second Sister, and the Electrohammer Purge Trooper. I know I'm a little late, I'm a little behind. This 3-pack has been out for, I want to say, just under a month now, but my room is scorching hot because I live upstairs and heat rises and it's getting hot out, and it's just, the motivation to record with all of the fans off is very little, but I gotta put content out nonetheless, so here we are. And to be completely honest, I don't think this was a 3-pack any of us were predicting to see. I think it's really cool that we are getting a Inquisitor version of Cal into the Black Series. I enjoy how we're getting a re-release of the Second Sister, and I love me my helmeted boys for those who are reoccurring viewers, so very happy to see that we are getting another Purge Trooper. So at any point during or after the video you do realize you want to pick up this 3-pack for yourself, you're gonna have to go to the amazing website of Amazon. For this 3-pack is an Amazon exclusive for the whopping price of $69.99. So this definitely is not a cheap pickup, so hopefully you don't have all 3 figures, so you can definitely get your full money's worth. Unless you already have the Second Sister, then you're only getting 2/3 of your money's worth. But granted, the Second Sister in this 3-pack comes with something that the initial release doesn't, and I think most people would agree it's also an improvement over the initial release of the Second Sister. So with all that information being thrown at y'all's faces, let's move on to opening up this 3-pack. So starting off with the packaging, and we can see all 3 figures looking all nice and schmexy, and it looks like everything is included. You get a nice little title on the bottom. On the side we do get some artwork of the 3 figures looking all cool, and on the back we get that same artwork, but you know, larger so we can look at it better. And then we have a brief description of what is included in this 3-pack if we couldn't tell already. And with all that said, let's open up this box. Starting off with head articulation, you can rotate the head 360 degrees, which is always nice to see. And then you can have the Second Sister look up and down a good amount as well. And then when it comes to that head tilt, the range is good as well. Now I will say you could get more range out of this figure if the Second Sister didn't have the brim of the helmet clash with the shoulders. But at the end of the day, I'm still very happy with the range of the head articulation on this figure. And then looking at the arm articulation, you can rotate the arms up and over 360 degrees, which is really nice to see. And then you can have her bring up her arms a good amount as well, which means you can have her open up her arms a good amount. So very happy with the range there in the shoulders of the figure. And you can also rotate the arms 360 degrees from the side, or I should say you can spin them 360 degrees. And then moving down, we can get a really good elbow bend. We can go past that 90-degree mark, so very happy to see that there. And then we can rotate the forearm and elbow 360 degrees as well, which is awesome to see. And then moving down from there, with the hand, you can bend 360 degrees and bend the wrist however you please. So overall, very happy with the arm articulation on this figure. And then when it comes to the torso, you can rotate the torso 360 degrees, which is always nice to see. You can have her lean back and forth a decent amount, and with that you can also have her go side to side a decent amount, which allows for a nice spherical range of motion. And overall, very happy with the torso articulation on this figure. And then finally, with the legs, you can rotate the legs up and over 360 degrees, which is nice to see on this figure. And then moving from that, with the splits, you can get a really good range with the splits here, mostly because there's nothing really blocking her legs. And then with all that, that means you can bring up her legs, so if you want her to sit in a chair or off the ledge of a cliff, you can have that figure do that. And then at the very top of the thighs, you can spin the legs 360 degrees independently from the thigh joint. And then moving down to the knees, you can have a really good knee bend. You can have it so this figure can be displayed in a variety of action poses or running poses with how good this knee bend is. And then moving down from the knees, you can rotate the feet 360 degrees and bend the ankle however you please. So overall, very happy with the leg articulation on this figure. Lots of range, a lot of ways to pose this figure with the amount of range we have, which I love seeing with our figures, and I think a lot of people like seeing as well. So moving over the Cal, you can rotate his head 360 degrees, which is always nice to see. You can have him look up and down a really good amount, and then that means with the head tilt, the range is really good as well. So very happy to see that. And one thing is that his neck, instead of it being one piece, it's actually two, which probably caters to why his head articulation is really good. And then moving over to the arms, you can rotate his arms up and over 360 degrees, which is always nice to see on these figures. And then you can also just spin his arm 360 degrees as well, so very nice to see that on here. And then when it comes to bringing up his arm, we have some decent range, somewhat limited due to the armor he's wearing, but it's still possible. And then you can really have him open up his arms, and this is because there's actually two joints in his shoulder, which is really nice to see. It really gives us more range in this figure. And then moving down to the elbow, we get a really nice elbow end going past that 90-degree mark, which y'all know I love to see. And then after that, we can rotate the elbow and forearm independently from the rest of the arm. And obviously moving down from that, we get to the hand, and that can be rotated 360 degrees, and we can bend the wrist however we please. So overall, very happy with Cal's arm articulation. And then moving over to his torso, you can rotate it 360 degrees, which is always nice to see on our figures. You can have them back and forth a decent amount, and we can have them tilt side to side a decent amount as well, which allows for a nice spherical range of motion on this figure. So very happy with the torso articulation for Cal. And then finally, with the leg articulation, we can rotate his legs up and over 360 degrees, which is always nice to see. We can get a really good split out of him, almost a near split. Very happy to see that there. And then we can bring up his legs, so if you want him to sit in a chair or off the ledge of a cliff, that is possible. And then at the thigh, you can spin them 360 degrees independently from that one thigh joint that's attached to the waist, which is nice to see. And then with the knee bend, we can get some decent range, which allows for a variety of action poses and running poses. And then another thing with the knee is you can rotate it 360 degrees, and this also includes the calf and the feet, so this is granting the figure more range, which I like to see. And then moving down to the feet, you can rotate them 360 degrees and bend the ankles however you please. And overall, I am very happy with Cal's leg articulation. There is a ton of range here. And then finally, for the Purge Trooper, starting off with his head articulation, you can rotate the head 360 degrees. You can have him look up and down a good amount. And then when it comes to that head tilt, the range is good as well, which allows for an overall really good spherical range of motion in the head region, making the head articulation on this figure pretty good. And moving over to the arm articulation, you can rotate the arm up and over 360 degrees. And obviously with the arm with the pauldron over it, you don't have that full 360 degree rotation, but the range is still really good nonetheless. And then when it comes to bringing up the arm, you can't really, it's not the best range. There's been definitely more range achieved from other figures in the Black series, and even with the arm with the pauldron over it, the range is about the same as the arm that doesn't have the pauldron over it. The moving down to the tricep bicep area, that can rotate 360 degrees independently from the shoulder. And then moving down to the elbow bend is pretty good. You can go past the 90-degree mark, which I like to see on my figures. And unfortunately, we can't rotate the elbow or the forearm 360 degrees. So moving down from that, you can rotate the hand 360 degrees and bend the wrist however you please. So realistically, I am pretty mixed about the arm articulation on the Purge Trooper due to the limitation in the shoulders and the lack of rotation in the elbow / forearm. And then when it comes to the torso, you can obviously rotate it 360 degrees. Then when it comes to the back and forth motion, the range is good in that department. And then when it comes to that side to side tilt, I am happy with the range that we have as well, giving us a really good spherical range of motion in the torso. This is pretty standard for the Black series, and I love to see it. And then finally, we have the leg, which you can rotate up and over 360 degrees. It just requires you to grind the armor on the thigh against the armor around the waist, and I don't know if you really want to do that with this figure, so it is achievable. I just be very careful. And then you can rotate the thigh, again not 360 degrees because of the armor, but the range is still really good nonetheless. And then moving down from that over to the split, you can't get a full split, but you could definitely get to around the halfway point, which isn't bad nonetheless. And then you can bring the legs all the way up, so if you want him to sit in a chair off the ledge of a cliff, you can have him do that. And moving down to the knee, you can get a pretty good knee bend because it is a double jointed knee, so you can get a lot of action poses or running poses with this figure. And then you can't really rotate the knee or the calf, but you can rotate the boot 360 degrees and bend the ankle pretty much however you please, which is good to see on this figure. And overall, somewhat mixed feelings on the leg because there is some limitations. They're not the worst limitations, but they are still there nonetheless. So when it comes to the articulation as a whole, overall I am satisfied. Articulation for the second sister is great, articulation for Cal is great, and unfortunately for the Purge Trooper, it's not the best out of the three, mostly because the Purge Trooper is using an older clone mold that people didn't really like because of its limitations. But it's, you know, it is what it is. It's what we have to deal with. These are the facts, that the articulation on the Purge Trooper are going to be somewhat limited and pale in comparison to the second sister and Cal. But one thing that I did find really interesting while taking a look at everyone's articulation is how different Cal's articulation is in comparison to the other figures. I understand each figure's design is unique to themselves, and a character's design can dictate the level of quality in articulation, but the differences between Cal and the other figures I just kind of find really interesting. Example one being that Cal's neck is made up of two pieces rather than one like the second sister and the Purge Trooper and overall most Black Series figures that we see. A second example being Cal's shoulders being made up of two pieces rather than one like the second sister and the Purge Trooper. A third example being that Cal can rotate his knee and calves independently from the rest of his legs, unlike the second sister and the Purge Trooper where they can't rotate their knees or calves at all independently from the rest of the leg. And the last example, and I guess this is kind of an example that makes the second sister different from the rest of these figures, is she can't rotate her tricep bicep area. Cal and the Purge Trooper can. The only difference between Cal and the Purge Trooper is when Cal rotates his tricep bicep area, it also rotates a part of his shoulder, whereas the Purge Trooper, when he rotates his tricep bicep area, it is only the tricep bicep area. And because all of these things, that makes Cal's articulation stand out from the rest, I'd have to say he has the best articulation out of all the figures in this 3-pack, with the second sister taking second place, and then the Purge Trooper unfortunately is in last. So overall, very happy with the articulation with all three of these figures. Even if the Purge Trooper is in last, he doesn't have bad articulation, it's just not as good as the second sister or Cal's. So I don't have to explain it twice. Both lightsabers, like every other lightsaber in the Black Series, the blades are removable, and of course you can pop them right back on. Starting off with the second sister's lightsaber, and I think Hasbro did a good job with the visual presentation. I love the color variation, I like the little hint of red, and I really like how they even sculpted the grip on the handle. Overall, very happy with this accessory. Then up next we have Cal's lightsaber. Zero complaints about the visual presentation. I think they did a great job with the sculpt work and the paint work. I love the color variation. Again, not much to say, but I don't think there's much needed to be said in the first place. And then for the last accessory, we have the Purge Trooper's Electrohammer, and I really like how this came out. I really like how they handled the purples. Nothing too complicated. It gets the point across. I like the sculpt work for the head of the hammer. It really makes it look like a piece of machinery with all the little details they got down. The handle is quite simple, and overall very happy with how this accessory came out. So I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't know how I was going to tackle this segment of the video. I didn't know if I wanted to go over each individual figure and talk about every little thing that Hasbro got down, or if I wanted to have a more generalized, discussion talking about all three of them at the same time. So realistically, I'm probably going to do a combination of both approaches. So talking about all three figures, I can confirm that all three of these figures, if you haven't been using your eyes already, look really good. I have zero complaints about their visual presentation. Hasbro really brought their game here with these three figures, because again, I have zero complaints about their visual presentation. And not to make it sound like that they have a track record of making shitty looking figures, because they don't. It's just I'm very happy with how these three came out. But if I was to really start getting into specifics, one thing that I saw that I really liked was that the second sister came with a cloth cape. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like I've owned the initial release of the second sister, but I do know that release did have the second sister come with a hard plastic cape that's pretty much pre-positioned, which, if you don't know, that can really limit the range and articulation of a figure. So to see this figure come with a cloth cape is awesome, because now I don't have to worry about that cape limiting or hindering the range articulation of this figure. And it just looks good with the Imperial logos and the red on the inside. It just looks phenomenal. And I don't really have anything to say about Inquisitor Cal. There's nothing that he does visually that sticks out from the other two. He just looks good, like I said earlier. And again, just because there's nothing that he does that really makes him stick out from the other two figures doesn't mean he's a bad figure. It's just that he does his job, he does it well, and he doesn't reinvent the wheel in any way. And then of course we have the Purge Trooper. Now it uses a clone mold that the fan base is very mixed on, because it does look good, but when it comes to the articulation, it's kind of limited. But this is visual presentation, so we're not going to worry about that. This is a good looking clone mold. We've seen it before, it's been talked about 100 times. There's nothing really I can add to this conversation that hasn't been said before. But this is the Electrohammer Purge Trooper, so in comparison to the other Purge Troopers, this guy is going to have different markings. In this case, he has white markings, he has a white pauldron and a red visor, which looks really cool. And because we've now gotten the Purge Trooper Commander, the Electro Staff Purge Trooper, and now the Electrohammer Purge Trooper, we have one more, and that is the Electro Baton Purge Trooper. And I wonder how Hasbro is going to give us that figure. But again, this figure that we have right in front of us looks good, zero complaints, and I can't wait to see how Hasbro will give us that last Purge Trooper. And it's now just hitting me that all of the Purge Troopers are supposed to have red visors, and they only just started doing that with this release. I mean, it's cool that they fixed it. It's just I wish they didn't do it on the third Purge Trooper. I wish they fixed it sooner, or didn't make that mistake at all. But I'm glad to see that they finally righted that wrong. And that's pretty much all I have to say about these individual releases. If there was one more comment I can make about all three figures as a whole, is that the glossy black, if you haven't noticed, it's very reflective, and there's a lot of flare in some of the photos that I use, and I do apologize for that. But these figures are very glossy, and fingerprints will easily appear on these figures for those who really care about that. So I figured I'd throw that out there. And with all that said, let's move on to the next segment. So let's put these figures into scale with some size comparisons. Starting off, we have our generic Imperial Stormtrooper. Then we have our Imperial Death Trooper. Then we have the Book of Boba Fett Chrysanthemum. And we have the Bad Batch Omega. 4 droids, starting off with the Imperial KX Security Droid. Then we have a Republic Commando Battle Droid. An Attack of the Clones B2 Super Battle Droid. An Imperial Astromech Droid. And finally, we have a Mouse Droid. Moving on to some other figures, starting off with NECA's Aliens Xenomorph Warrior. Then we have NECA's Predator 2 Elder Predator, aka Greyback. Jazzwares the Spartan Collection Halo 3 Master Chief. Jazzwares is the World of Halo Infinite Master Chief. Then we have McFarlane's the Doomslayer. And then finally, we have Joy Toys Warhammer 40k Blood Angels Space Marine. So here we are at the thoughts and discussion segment in the video, aka the turntable segment in the video, pretty much where I go over what I like, dislike, pros, cons, strengths, and weaknesses, stuff like that, give my general thoughts and opinions, and just get a conversation started. And if anyone wants to go down in the comment section below and reply to what I have said during this segment or any segment of the video, go ahead. I'll most likely reply to y'all's comments because I like talking about this stuff clearly, and because I don't like dwelling on the negative any longer than I already have to. I want to get the sour stuff out of the way first. And the only thing that really does come to mind is the Purge Trooper and the mold that they used. They used an older mold that the fan base wasn't too big on, because the new clone mold is so much better and I love it to bits and pieces like the majority of the fan base, and I wish that they used that clone mold instead. I understand it saves time and resources to use an older mold, and I think many people like myself would have loved to see a Purge Trooper with the new clone mold, especially because this Purge Trooper has a melee weapon, so they're going to be moving around a lot, and you really want this figure to have as much range as possible, especially if you're trying to get those action poses with this figure. And I guess after that, that's my only issue with this 3-pack. After that, there is something I would have loved to see, and that would have been to have the lightsabers of the second sister and Cal somehow attached to their figures, because the only way you're gonna see their lightsabers on them is in their hands, because there's no hooks, there's no sheaths, no holsters, nothing like that for their lightsabers. And I just wish there was some way that you could have had their lightsabers just hang on to their outfits. And I can go on a whole rant about how it sucks that this is an Amazon exclusive, because once they run out on Amazon, the only place you're gonna be able to get this is through the secondary market, which is gonna probably upscale the price for this already $70 product, which sucks. And there's probably people who are gonna complain about how they just want Inquisitor Cal, or they just want the Purge Trooper, or they just want the second sister, and they can care less about the other two figures and have to shell out that $70 for that one figure they want and the two that they don't. And all I can say is I hope that they do make individual releases for these figures, because I'm personally happy with my purchase. I wanted all 3 figures, so I'm content. But like with the Super Battle Droid, I really do hope that they do make individual releases for these figures, because that would be really awesome and would cater to the fans who missed out on the release of this 3-pack. But getting into the more positive side of things, this is an amazing 3-pack for those who are willing to shell out that money. The articulation of these figures is great. I know that the Purge Trooper we discussed has somewhat limited articulation, but overall it's pretty decent for what it is. But then when we look at the second sister and Cal, they have amazing articulation. So overall, in the grand scheme of things, the articulation isn't bad when it comes to this 3-pack. The visuals are great. Like I said, I have 0 complaints. Some people might be a little iffy about the black glossiness because of fingerprints and all that, but I personally don't have an issue with that. I think that these figures look amazing, and I am a huge fan of the second sister getting a cloth cape. I know I didn't have to deal with the pain of the initial release having that hard plastic cape, but I still am grateful that I do have this figure with a cloth cape, because I'm a huge fan of figures that do that. So again, very nice to see. And I have 0 complaints about the accessories. Yeah, it's the accessories that are supposed to come with these figures, so it's not like Hasbro went above and beyond here, but I still think they did a great job with the accessories nonetheless. So overall, I think they gave us some pretty good looking and for the most part feeling figures with some solid accessories, and that's all we could really ask for from this 3-pack. And yeah, I get it, exclusives suck and no one wants to spend $70, but again, I feel like I really got my money's worth here with this 3-pack. So at the end of the day, I'm very happy with this 3-pack. I'm happy with the figure selection. I'm happy with how these figures look and feel for the most part. I think that the accessory selection is great, and really my only big complaint is the fact that the Purge Trooper uses the old clone mold. It would have been great to see him use the new one, but it is what it is, and I do highly recommend this 3-pack to anyone who's looking for some real cool and, I'll admit, edgy looking figures. I love my troopers, so I had to get this 3-pack for my Purge trooper. And obviously I like Inquisitor Cal and the second sister, but I can't recommend this 3-pack more than I already do, because it is a great 3-pack, like I said. And if you do have this 3-pack, please tell me down below, what do you like, what do you dislike about it? Give me your thoughts. I want to hear them, and I'll most likely reply to y'all's comments, because I love talking about this stuff clearly. And if you did enjoy today's video, a like and a subscription would be phenomenal. I already said what I said about commenting, and don't worry about the bell. We both know that shit is broken. And if you want to see more content like this, there's plenty of it up on the channel. I've reviewed a plethora of Black Series stuff already, but I also cover stuff from the Halo franchise, Predator franchise, and Alien franchise. So if any of that does interest you, you're more than welcome to go check that out. And please have an amazing day and stay hydrated. It's important.